Welcome to American Jank, another episode of American Jank. You see how janky these openings are? It's because I don't write them before. I'm just, you would never tell that I'm freestyling this, but I am. And I have a great guest. As always, my guest will be here to comment on a couple video games that they know nothing about yet. It's all a surprise. I've been doing a little digging, listening to some of the stuff that this person is involved with. So I think we picked a couple little gems. Me and Lucas, our producer, were testing this morning to see if we could do some cool stuff over Parsec with that, and I think we can. So without further ado, a man that I have a lot in common with, but I'm talking to for the first time today. Please welcome Glenn Rubenstein.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Cool. How's it going? What are you doing?
Good.
I like your background.
Yeah, so I started writing about video games professionally in 1990 at the age of 14 years old. I was one of the original editors at GameSpot, testified in the Game Genie trial against Nintendo in favor of Loose Glue toys. I was one of the original contributors to Wired, and then at the age of 28, walked away from the industry to pursue other endeavors, because at that point I've been doing it half my life. But if I left behind any legacy, it's that I hired Jeff Gerstmann at GameSpot and got him into this business, and now we have reunited. Oh, and it feels so good. We are doing Game Boys to Men, a podcast on Jeff Gerstmann's Patreon, where we look back at the early days of the video game business and our teenage shenanigans in this industry. In addition to that, I also host the Wrestling Inc. podcast for their NXT and SmackDown coverage. So yeah, I've definitely stayed with media, do a lot of work in advertising and marketing, and yeah, look back fondly on my time as a video game journalist.
All right, you got this. You're way better than me at this stuff. So Lucas has all the stuff that you guys need to cover. I'm just gonna go, and I'll leave you to it. That was an amazing intro. What a great way to synthesize all that stuff, because that's one of the things I want to talk to you. That is a great timeline as a base that we can talk to. Because I knew of you, of the name Glenn Rubenstein, as someone that was reading a lot about video games and was reading GameSpot back in the day. And then I started writing about video games over here when I was 16, so you beat me by 2 years. But then I also dropped it at 28 to open a podcast production company and try to make money that way. And that's I have Half-Daff, which and we now have, we do podcasts all over Latin America and things like that, and you have to go and deal with marketing and advertising, unfortunately. But I was listening to the first episode of Game Boys to Men on the Jeff Gerstmann Patreon, and everyone should do it. If you're interested in video game press history, it is so good. It's so good. And your whole, you guys were talking about your, like you mentioned, your Wunderkid status as the expert witness in the Galoob versus Nintendo lawsuit, and you were guys talking about how, hey, we did a lot of these stuff when we were teens, and we were maybe a little bit too cocky, a little bit too much of an asshole. And I was like, yeah, I get it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God all that stuff is not online anymore. How is it, and I ask you as someone who has to figure this out for themselves as well, how is it that you deal with that? Because like sometimes, well, for me at least, it's like sometimes you go like, oh, I really did that, and that was cool, and that was impressive, and then other days it's like, oh man, remember when I said that and I was such an asshole to that person?
Well,
how do you balance
therapy? Years
Yes.
of therapy.
Yes.
No, I think also it's tough, right? Because yeah, I think in terms of cringe moments, one, and we talked about this, shameless plug for the latest episode. Jeff Gerstmann has a teaser on his YouTube channel. A lot of this stuff was documented. Like there's a terrible cringe appearance of me on Computer Chronicles. There's numerous TV news things. I look back fondly towards the later end. I did some episodes of Icons on G4 when I was in my mid-20s, and I look at that, I'm like, like, okay, like, yeah, I
already an icon in your mid-20s.
You know, well, I'm just the talking head.
Oh, okay.
Talking about the icons, but yeah, you know, it's like I'm in the video game music episode and the Madden episode and a few others, and I look at that and I'm like, okay, I kind of my dust settled a little bit. I think in terms of getting it, but no, it's tough, man, because it's like you think about every bad photo of you as a teenager, and there's a lot of that stuff that you know, we keep locked away in shoeboxes, you know, somewhere buried in our closet. But yeah, it's weird to me that, you know, if somebody wants like that stuff's out there, and I have to sort of reconcile almost looking at it like it was, you know, a prototype version of myself. That, okay, this is who I was, and you know, didn't quite have everything figured out, and most people got to experience this awkwardness in private, but I did it in a very public fashion. And I think that what's interesting for me is it definitely affected my relationship with video games, because I think there were many years when I didn't want to play games because there were so many memories, or there was a bit of resentment. You know, I got out of this business because I looked at the younger generations that were coming up. And people like Jeff and I, we started playing games when we were like 4 or 5 years old. But there were people that came up that were just born with it. There was nothing new about it. They were versed, and I was like, whoa, they're really good. They really get this stuff. And I feel like maybe I didn't capitalize as much on the opportunity. So now it's interesting to go back, and I do a lot of, you know, I play a couple current games, but I do a lot of retro games. And, you know, I could tell sometimes my wife finds it sort of, you know, she's like, are you doing this? You know, like I'm just telling these stories, because for me, I almost can't play some of these games without saying like, you know, well, Sonic and Knuckles, you know, it was very revolutionary. They had it where the card could play through. Then you could go back in the earlier Sonic games, actually play as Knuckles. And there was this event at Alcatraz I remember we went to, and there was this dude that won the contest. And there was a controversy, like, did he have access to a copy of the game ahead of time? Did he practice playing this and he won the contest? You know, it was like everything's got a story attached to it. It's like, this must have been what it was like hanging out with Robert Evans before he passed away, you know, notable Hollywood producer. You couldn't watch a darn movie without him just being like, you know, so-and-so had a real ego problem, and on set we constantly had to manage this. Like, everything's got a backstory to it, and I think that's been the more interesting baggage that I've carried from the era.
Yes, I completely understand that. I am involved with a couple, you know, video game history preservation efforts, both locally and you know, with Frank Cifaldi over there at the Video Game History Foundation, stuff like that. And part of what got me interested is because after years and years of you know, reviewing video games and covering video game events, my house was filled with stuff that had stories attached to them, and I was like, maybe this should not be limited to the people that come over to my house for me to bother with. That Halo helmet, it's a funny story. We were at Microsoft, and it's like, maybe the stories and all this stuff should be more accessible to people, and less attached to, well, I was there.
Yeah, you know, I get it. I mean, I'm this way about movies and TV. Like, for instance, if there's a movie that I love, or if there's a TV show, with movies it's easier, but if there's a TV show that I love, like I'm obsessed. I have been ever since it first aired, like the sitcom It's Your Move with Jason Bateman, short-lived on NBC in the mid-'80s, where he played a Ferris Bueller-type character, only ran for 1 season. Like, I've tracked down every script on that show. I've sent emails to people that worked on that show. Like, I want to know all the stories behind it, the angry letters that NBC got because parents were saying, like, my son's emulating your character, Matt Burton, you know, and he got suspended from school. Like, I'm very obsessive about wanting to learn about the PR, the marketing, the TV guide advertisements. Like, I get that way about movies and television, and to a lesser extent music that I love. So I definitely, with the video games, people have that same impulse as well. And for me, I think it took a while to realize that this was just my life, you know, as a teenager. And now I look back and I'm like, whoa, there's kind of a story there. There's, you know, some inside baseball, and look at the preservation of it. I mean, I'll give you a great, probably one of the most famous examples of where like video game journalism like helped preserve an archive, but Penn and Teller, the Penn and Teller video game with Desert Bus. Like,
yes,
we would not have that, and we would not have the cult of that and the charity fundraising around it if a video game outlet had not kept their beta copy for Sega CD, because the game was never released.
Yeah, I remember when that came out. It was end of 2006 or early 2007, because I remember, yeah, because I remember I heard about it because Penn had like a podcast. Like, it was a radio show, but they were releasing it as a podcast as well, which was kind of new at the time. And I happened to be in the US when that dropped, and I played it on an emulator. And then later I would go to Las Vegas and see a show, and like they hang out, you know, take pictures, whatever you want, and do autographs. And so I went up to Penn and I was like, I play that game. And he was very much an asshole about it back then, of like, well, then you pirated it because there's no way you could have played it, and he was kind of rispid about it. But I think they mellowed out on the thing after it became a charity stuff. But yeah, we're just now living through it, right, with HBO and all of the shows being taken off the air, and a lot of creators going, please pirate my show.
Yeah, I mean, thank God people preserve this stuff, because we never know if it's going to get official release. In fact, like that series I was talking about, It's Your Move, like somehow it got an official streaming release after 30 years of VHS tapes and trying to find like the best copy. Maybe someone had a Betamax airing of it. Somehow it ended up on CTV Throwback in Canada. Due to a Sony licensing deal, it just got lumped in with a bunch of other titles. Like, it's weird when stuff surfaces, but more often than not, stuff doesn't. And with games, you know, credit to Jeff Gerstmann, because he's kept almost everything from his time in the business. Whereas for me, like, it legit became disposable at a certain point, or it became this burden I was carrying around where I had all these boxes of old press kits. And it used to be, Jeff and I will talk about this on a future episode of Game Boys to Men, but it used to be like you would go to CES and the Nintendo press kit, the Sega press kit, these things were substantial. This wasn't just a folder. They would do a really cool looking binder. They would have all these materials in there. They were almost trying to one up each other for the better part of the early 90s. So yeah, I've got a little bit of not personal related to me game memorabilia things, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm sure I had like EEPROM carts and you know, some stuff that probably had value that, you know, you don't almost realize it. And think about it this way, man. Like think about what a used NES or NES games were going for the better part of the last 20 years. Hell, think about like Rock Band is a great example. Think about Rock Band and Guitar Hero. Had 10 years ago, we all threw away our plastic instruments or gave them away. Like someone would have paid you to take that out of their house.
Yes.
And now if you want to find like a current generation guitar for Rock Band, like you're paying like $200 or $300.
Yeah.
You know, so scarcity really drives the demand for these things, and it's crazy how volatile it is for video games.
You okay?
Oh.
She just does that, but when she does not hit her head, she's fine.
Good. I hope she's all right.
Yeah, like I was trying to get my DJ Hero controller to work with an emulator on PC the other day, and thankfully, you know, you can do it. It's a bit of an effort, but it happens, and stuff like that. It's kind of just lost. You know, I've tried to balance a little bit of what I've been keeping and what I've been being able to let go now. But one of the things that I don't let go of, and people kind of laugh, is like I cannot in good conscience get rid of a Kinect or a Kinect 2, because those games are not backwards compatible. They're not emulatable, because none of the emulators actually accept the Kinect, and there's no Xbox One emulator, and you can't, you know, connect your Kinect to an Xbox Series. And so I go like, what if I need to get, you know, like if I need to play that, and it's not even, you know, even though I was not producing media about video games of any kind before this show for a long time, part of me was like, what if someone needs to capture footage of a Kinect game? Like I can help them, because like I remember one of the last things that I was doing before, like, actually just, you know, not having time to be a game journalist at all, was I would go to these, like, morning TV shows and stuff like that. They would call me, like, can you just, like, tell us what are some cool games, and we'll contact PR. We'll get the games there, and you just go there and you present the games. And they loved having, you know, Kinect games and games, because it shows really well on TV. And part of me was like, you know, now I am the guy, you know, I'm carrying that with me of like, if you want to show a Kinect game, it's like, I got you. I covered video games during all of the Kinect living of lifespan, so like I got them all. I got them all right here, and I got the Kinects. You can call me.
That's funny about the DJ Hero controller, because I've had that thought before about some peripherals in particular, where and maybe it's just having been around gaming and technology so long now that I'm like 46, but part of me, I've had that thought before where I'm like, okay, right now this is useless, but at some point someone's going to figure out how to use this on a PC to control things. And I'm going to be able to do something cool with it. So I'm going to store this away. And it's funny, with DJ Hero, I haven't messed with it. I've still got my controller somewhere, but like, I just bought a Reloop Buddy, for using DJ on the iPad. And it's and playing it, it's a very game. It's like a $300 controller, but it's still very like gamified. It's like one step above DJ Hero and like a couple $100 below buying like a real DJ controller. But I like having the pads and the buttons. I got really into Mixmeister for a couple of years, doing like mashups and DJ sets there. So I bought like a Mixmeister dedicated controller when I found one used for $100. It's like weird hardware like that. I think definitely is worth holding on to. Software is easy to archive. Software is easy to clone. Software also doesn't take up much space. But no, I think peripheral wise, I mean, I wish I kept a complete working Rock Band set. You know,
oh, totally.
But at the time, it was like nobody wanted to look at those instruments.
Yeah,
you know?
Like one of the weird hardware things that I kept around, even though it was useless, and now it has come back around, is my first capture card. That it did composite and component video. And for a long time, it was like, why? Why do you keep that around? Like, those things are garbage. But now, eventually, they became very important in my life because, first of all, because they take composite in and do you can monitor the video through component out, they get rid of any conflict between PAL and NTSC because they strip away all that. So I have I have Brazilian consoles that are PAL M, which is this weird 60 hertz version of PAL. So I can capture videos of the Zebo, Glenn, which is something that happened way after you left the industry. So I don't know if you know what a Zebo is. And also, recently, it meant that I could capture old VHS tapes because I found some old VHS tapes, like random family VHS tapes at a bazaar sale, and I just did a Twitch stream where we watched this family go on trips and on birthdays, and it's so weird because it's like it was made for the internet age where they only say first names and there's no identifiable information. We were never able to find these people. We don't know their last names. We don't know what they worked on. We kind of figured out where what city they lived in, but that was kind of it. It was so fascinating. But anyway, now I can digitize videotapes because I kept a little weird capture card around.
It is so important. Let me just put this out there to anyone watching or listening to this. Like VHS, and to a much lesser extent beta, like look at the HBO Max situation. VHS is really what created the People's Archive of all media from like 1980 to 2005, before the DVR. And DVRs just overwrote themselves. It's a tragedy that we've lost all those shows that came out of that in between post VHS and pre everything being digital. But I used to go on Craigslist and get I remember meeting up with like weird people in San Francisco that were just getting rid of their old VHS collection. I would just go through and be like, okay, I'm looking for MTV late night talk show. Like I would have specific stuff I wanted to find and I would archive it. And, people upload these things to Internet Archive. Like it's great that it's out there. One thing I want to ask you about Brazil, because I actually didn't know this until last night. I was not aware of the Sega Master System's like long-term popularity and dominance in the Brazilian market until last night.
Okay. Ask away.
Yeah, I mean, so how long did that go? Because there were games released, like Street Fighter 2 was released for the Master System in the late 90s.
Well, no, the Street Fighter 2 for the Master System, that was early 90s. That was around when it came to the Genesis.
Okay, so it was I think it was around maybe 94, 95.
Yeah,
so
and then
90s.
Mortal Kombat 3 also got a port here. So 95, 96. But it you can still buy a Master System, I think. Or you could, the last Master System I bought was around 2011, and that thing was still being sold around 2018, I think, at least.
That's crazy. I mean, I respect, man. Like, it's a good system. It's funny, though. I was playing, I just set up CoinOps and RetroArch on my main computer because I'm thinking about investing, finally, in a serious MAME cabinet, and I want the three-sided hinge cocktail unit that unfolds.
I have to stop you there.
Yeah, what's up?
Have you heard about the Mr. Cade?
No, what's
so? Do you know what the Mr. is?
No.
your fellow podcaster Jeff Gertzman, I think, has one. Well, so the Mister is this little FPGA console that people make with the D10 and O thing. And so what they do with FPGA is that it's not emulation, man. It's
an actual JAMA board.
No, it's this tiny little board, and you release cores for it because what the FPGA does is that it simulates how the electricity would go through the gates in the actual hardware level of things. And so the Mister is something people program a bunch of cores into. So it does from 8-bit all the way to the most recent cores are PlayStation and Saturn. And the Mister Cade is just a way to get that into a JAMA like a JAMA setup, so you can actually have a monitor and all the JAMA setup, but you could just put it in a cabinet with a regular VGA monitor or a TV and plug controllers in through USB, and you'd have the best experience, some would say. But yeah, this thing right here is getting an overhaul because I finally found a 29-inch CRT for it. But those things are expensive, and my girlfriend is smaller than me, so I'm waiting around for a friend that can come over and carry the CRT into the cabinet for me with me.
Nice. I really want one of the virtual pinball tables, but I don't want one $5,000 or more worth.
Yeah,
a bit insanely priced.
I understand why you'd want the virtual one, because for a long time I wanted a pinball table, but then I realized things warp and physics happens and materials deteriorate.
Yeah, I can unblock some ports on a router. I can't fix broken bumpers or mechanical parts on a pinball machine.
Yeah, you can't. Oh, no, you take off the whole base, right? And then you put some weights on it so so it's not bowing anymore, and then it's gonna be flat again. And then every 3 years you just do that. it's gonna be fine, Clay. You just need 2 extra garages to do it.
Oh my god! And you know what's funny too is everyone that I've seen, even Jeff, had a bunch of arcade machines. Everybody gets a bunch of arcade machines and pinball machines, and then it becomes the burden of having to rehome them at some point. But talk about scarcity. You used to be able to buy almost any coin-op machine for under $1,000.
Oh man, tell me about it. I was a slave to that experience once because I always wanted an arcade machine, because when you're young, that is the ultimate thing of you couldn't get that. Yeah, you wanted that at home. So eventually, right around when I started writing about video games, so I was 15, 16. I eventually I had enough money to buy an arcade machine, which was around 500 reais back then, which would be $250 back then.
Oh wow!
A full cabinet, all wired up. Sound, video, just needed the boards. And then I knew a guy who collected boards, and I got a Street Fighter 2 World Warrior, for 100 reais, so $50, and I got it. I had it at home, and it was a dream come true. And then what I realized very quickly was, one, it gets old having to play Street Fighter 2 every time a friend comes over because they want to, because it's their first time playing your arcade machine, but you're done. You're done with that shit. Also, buying a bunch of games was cheap back then, but you still have to unscrew them from the board and get all this stuff. But then I was released from my curse because a couple months in, I wanted the guys who sold me to come in and cut down the side so I could get it into another room. And when they came and they moved the machine, we realized that it was full of termites. And
oh wow!
So I was like, "Oh, you sold me a cabinet full of termites. I want my money back." And I bought a Nintendo DS, and that was it until this little guy behind me, which was just a pandemic thing of you know what? Fuck it, I always wanted an Astro City cabinet. I like playing sitting down, and I found this guy locally who does wooden reproductions very cheap, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. But then I only found a monitor 2 years later, and here we are.
That's
so the thing is,
yeah,
we have a conflicted relationship with our history. Is that what I'm realizing now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, but that's to be expected, right? And I think anyone, regardless of whether you worked in professional industry or not, I mean, I don't know maybe this is part of nerd culture, is that I can understand if you're one of those people that, were liked by everybody in high school, played a lot of sports, had a good experience. I can understand there's some people that look back in high school and they're like, yes, those were amazing times. High school and college were great, and everything else was a crushing defeat. But much like a fine wine, I think a lot of geek and nerd culture, as we get older, we get more comfortable with ourselves, and then look back at the teenage years and it's like, oh, can't believe I said, did, wore, thought that.
Yes.
Yeah, we just did it a little more publicly.
Yes, and I guess with what you were talking about, how of being fascinated with the Jason Bateman sitcom and just like being really nerdy about it in the really what I think is the original use of the word of like being very focused on something and going to great lengths to find more about it. There's a great Patton Oswalt article from like 2010 or 2011, I think, where he talks about how the fact that now all that search is done through the internet, it maybe takes away a bit from the fact that we had to go to these video stores, we had to go to the places where these things were. But I feel like now, 10, 11 years after he wrote that, it hasn't become any easier because of the internet. You still have to know a guy. You still have to have some private trackers. You need to know where to look for. And again, going back to what you said about VHS, just every time we have some sort of change in media format or distribution commercial model, you lose a bunch of things. You lost. Imagine how much stuff was put onto VHS that was never re-released on DVD, and then again when you go to Blu-ray, and then again when you go to streaming and on-demand digital stuff, things like that. I remember I once did a story on this in my hometown in Porto Alegre, in the south of Brazil. It is the largest rental store of VHS pornography. So they have around 50,000 VHS porn VHS tapes and around 45,000 DVDs. But the thing is before they specialized in porn in the 90s, they were just a regular ass rental shop. So they have in the basement a lot of just regular VHSs from that time. And I found C-Lab 2020, which is the Hanna-Barbera educational cartoon where they got the animation cells from to do C-Lab 2021 for Adult Swim. So like I found that and he gave it to me, but there was so much stuff that you look at and you go like, what? Like a VHS of a TV show you never heard of, or a movie you never heard of, and you go like, oh, these things are like rotting away in places like this, and then
it's crazy.
And does part of you just look at that stuff and want to bring all the babies home and digitize them, or is that something I need to work through more on in therapy?
10 years ago, there's this guy in Oregon who was one of those home tapers that starting in the mid 80s started taping things, and then at one point was running like 10 VCRs, and I think he captured everything for the better part of 20 years. And he was like, this that became a burden. It consumed me. I just stopped, but I don't want to throw these tapes away. I need to get them to a good home. And these were like 20 or 30,000 VHS tapes.
Oh my God.
And I thought about it. I was like, at the time I was in California, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go up to Oregon, rent a truck, and I thought I was like, I'm going to have to get a dedicated storage space. It's probably going to cost me at least $200 a month. And then I was like, here's going to be my system for capturing it. I thought it out. Thankfully, somebody local got them and then proceeded to cut off contact with everybody who was interested in helping them archive it. And we don't know if he ever did anything with archiving the tapes. Right. But the collection is out. Like, there's an angry email thread that I'm on that every 6 months. Like,
and part of you can go like, hey, I got it to the guy. There's nothing I can do now.
Yeah. But it's crazy though, right? Because Internet Archive has stepped up quite a bit.
Yes.
With VHS, and hopefully that holds. Hopefully they don't get cease and desisted and DMCA'd to death with it. But Internet Archive, I mean, because I've been on the private VHS trackers, some of the most notable ones for the better part of the last 10 years. And it seems like Internet Archive actually has more juice now. Like, it's not as organized, and you don't see something where it's like, here's the complete series run of this.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, here's 8 hours of NBC from 1987, and you go through and find what's worth clipping and saving.
Exactly.
You know?
And in my experience, the Internet Archive has been useful to me, not only in finding things, but mostly also in like, hey, I digitized this, I saved this, or like I have this old web page saves. Like, I can have a copy. I can just upload a copy to the Internet Archive, and doesn't matter what happens to my hard drives, to me or whatever. Is at least I know there's a copy there that people can later access and put metadata on and make searchable and whatever. But yeah, just I am so glad it exists.
No, it's cool. And it's funny because if you would have asked me 2 months ago, I would have said, you know what? We're getting there in time with more media becoming available. You're seeing random stuff get just digitized as part of packages or sent to streaming. So stuff is surfacing. You have labels like Vinegar Syndrome and whatnot that are doing like these archive releases of movies that were considered, C-level movies at the time. I was like, MTV through Paramount Plus was putting up like, hey, here's some old archived like Yo MTV Raps. We're digitizing the MTV archives. It was still truncated a little bit, but it was still there. But then this HBO Max thing where some accountant realized like, we don't have to pay residuals if we just bury this again.
Yeah.
Like that, I think, is taking 10 steps back on the path that we've been on to making a complete archive of everything closer to reality.
Yeah. Speaking of MTV, like here MTV Brazil started in 1990, and it was a licensed channel. So it was a local media group got the brand to do it, and it ran through 2009, maybe around almost 2010, I think, when it folded. And that was really the MTV of my generation. They were really cool, and they did a bunch of cool stuff. And then when that media group folded, it reverted back to Paramount, and Paramount made a new MTV in like local, new Brazilian version of MTV on cable, and no one really likes it here because it's not the cool MTV of our days. But because it folded, like all of the sudden, like all of the tapes were just like left in the building that was sold.
Oh, wow.
And like I know some of the people that work there, and some people like stole some of the tapes of stuff they did, but it's all now decentralized and kind of like, and part of me just wants to go like, I should get all those people in the room and we should go through those beta tapes.
Yeah, or just archive them all, just put them online and let the crowdsource the documenting and dissecting what's on there. And and I have to give credit, like Night Flight Plus is amazing. It might be weird to sign up for a streaming service that just really has one thing and then a bunch of like shovelware that they were able to license also. But Night Flight was late night cable TV like answer to MTV in the 80s, and they would also post stuff about movies. They would have like interviews and videos, and Night Flight Plus, like I subscribe to it annually. Like they just put their entire archive of like, here's everything we could find straight from the master tape online.
Yes.
Like just have at it. And it's, what it's phenomenal for is that when you're having one of those evenings when you're sitting around at home and it's like, what do you want to watch? I don't know. What do you want to watch? It's like, you just toss this on as background, you hang out on your phone, a video gets your attention. And you're like, oh my God, the Super Bowl Shuffle video. I haven't seen this in 35 years. Or some band where you're like Southside Johnny. It's like, oh, this is terrible. I'm not familiar with this, but I can't stop watching. Love that. Also in the UK, Top of the Pops. Like the BBC has been showing retro cycles of Top of the Pops. Like I think right now they're doing like 1993. They started with 1980, and rightfully so. They skipped a bunch of episodes, like with Jimmy Savile and a couple of other presenters who did some heinous things. But now that we're in the 90s, it's almost uninterrupted. And it's cool because you see a lot of bands making their UK debut on TV, American bands or worldwide bands, a lot of British acts. It's got like some interesting notable stuff like, I can believe his name is Jeffrey Daniels from Shalimar. Like he was the first person to do the moonwalk on TV on BBC for a Shalimar song in the early 80s. And it was so popular, they brought him back the next week to do it again. 10 in like a
Wow.
dance routine. And Michael Jackson actually saw that because he was in the UK at the time, and then met with Jeffrey to teach him to do the moonwalk for the Motown 25 special.
Yes, I remember. I think there was a Michael Jackson documentary in the early 2000s that covered that, I think. But yeah, I remember being shocked when I found out of like, oh, Michael did not invent the moonwalk. He just saw a guy do it, and he was like, oh, that is really cool. I should do it as well.
And then the other benefit with Top of the Pops is that it's turned me on to a lot of music that just never made its way stateside or didn't make a splash in the States. So for me, I'm a huge 80s music head. And one of the best gifts I've ever received in my life is literally saying, here's a bunch of 80s music that is new to you that you can now discover and love just as much as these other songs that you grew up adoring. Like, that's been huge. So, look, people can figure out how to get an iPlayer login and a VPN, but I got to, or whatever the BBC web player VPN is, like, I found it on torrent site. But I got to say, like, yeah, these Top of the Pops retros, like, that's been one of the great game changers of my life of just exposing me to new things that I'm like predisposed to love, like, because it's just right in my wheelhouse.
And I've something else that I've been liking a lot, with the retro television kind of moment we're going through, maybe, is that Twitch and live streaming has been perfect for that, because you have all these 24/7 channels of like old computer show and things like that, of like, oh, this channel, have you seen I think it's Old Computer Show, which is just like 24/7. It's a Twitch channel that does 24/7 old like 80s and 90s computer TV shows or like infomercials and stuff from that era.
Nice.
So at any point you can just turn it on and it's going to be someone trying to sell you like Microsoft Encarta, or it's like an episode of a show talking about these new IBM processors who are going to be the future. It's called PowerPC.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to check that out. I've been wondering about Twitch because I've been wanting to do more with live streaming, and I've been wondering about how with DMCA's like and whatnot, like how
in my experience
dealing with all that.
The strikes only come if you leave it for on-demand play afterwards. Because I did a lot of I've been experimenting with that a lot. So I got a lot of VHS tapes, and one of the little collections I found was someone who recorded only like live music presentations from like different TV shows, and started in 87, and I found tapes through 93. So this person was really organized, and they would write down on like the little inside cover of like, okay, I recorded this on this day at this time as part of this show. Like, it was all very well documented, and so I aired a bunch of that on my Twitch channel, and now I have to go back and do it again because someone said it was like a couple of the things that I showed were lost media, actually.
Yeah.
So I have to digitize it right. But this VHS I got here has like, I think it has just some dust in it or something. I need to clean it so I can just properly digitize it, because now there's also that I've made some copies of some VHS tapes that I'm now obsessed with cleaning up, of like, I can get some scratches off this. Oh, I can get the frame rate kind of better at this point.
time-based corrector. Like,
yes, you do. Yes,
that's the key.
And it's hard because when I digitize it, I have to digitize it at like 5997 FPS, so I don't lose anything. But it's not technically interlaced, so it's hard to deinterlace after the fact. And I thought we were done with this.
No, I know. It's like, if you want to restore stuff properly, one, you need to learn basic VCR maintenance.
Yes,
because
that's where I'm at right now. I was like, do I want to do it? Do I want to open this thing up?
Yeah, thankfully I digitized good enough copies of the stuff that I really care about. But that's when I got to the point where it was like, I need to buy a TBC, and then you realize like they're scarce and they're expensive.
Yes, it's so weird how much of this analog video stuff is like, no one wants it, but if you do want it, it's $5,000. It's like, why? It's just sitting there.
No, but you need a super VHS VCR.
Yes,
and you need a TBC to really do it properly. But I see some stuff online. One of the shows I loved growing up was Kids Incorporated, which was like a precursor to Glee in the 80s. And like, there's a Kids Incorporated YouTube channel. I don't know the person. I don't know who's behind it, but they've said like, oh, I had beta recordings, or I've tracked down like affiliate tapes.
Yeah.
But they've done like these 4K upscales on their
Yeah.
channel, and I'm like, this looks better than most stuff that's officially released for TV programming that aired 10 years ago. Like this
I've
is
been
shockingly
fascinated.
good.
Have you messed around with like the AI upscaling stuff?
I mean, I've done it for photos,
Right.
which is weird because the photo one is it's not really AI upscaling. It's taking the facial features and then it's pulling like ultra high def similar facial features and reconstructing the face.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, so sometimes you'll do it and you'll be like, that's not the same person.
Exactly. Like, I don't like the I haven't had good experiences with the photo stuff, but the video stuff is really impressive.
Yeah, and there's an AI remastered channel on Reddit where people upload these things.
Yes.
But the Reddit video maxes out at 720 by 480.
Yes.
So I'm like,
that is why I upload them
Yeah.
to the Internet Archive.
Yes, exactly.
So if
I
you
don't
want
to see something upscaled at 480p, you know?
I'll send you a link. I did the whole 1 season run of Mark Dacascos's The Crow Stairway to Heaven, now in 1080p. So I got great results with that, and then I started doing the Highlander TV show, which is something I think a lot of people forgot about, but I was really into it. And so that is 6 seasons, and I've done I think 4 of them. It's very time consuming to render it out, but
the reason why I haven't jumped into that is how many years do you think we are before every TV just has this level of real-time upscaling built in?
Not long. And also these, like, every month or week there's a new model from a new machine learning model that improves something. And then I got into this whole, there's Discord servers of people that, just share models and stuff like that. And I got into one that is just for anime stuff. Because the models for animation stuff are really different.
To be unique.
Yeah. So,
it's like Spleeter. Have you messed around with Spleeter much in the real-time
what's that?
stem set? So it's real-time. It could be real-time or output stem separation for music that you can essentially feed it a track and it'll get bass drums, guitar, vocals.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure they trained this using all the Mogs from Rock Band and Guitar Hero, the multi-tracks.
Right.
I'm curious to see how it iterates. There's still artifacts on the majority of songs.
Sure,
so like DJ, this app that I'm so obsessed with, I bought this controller for it. DJ can in real time tap into Tidal and then take from Tidal the song and spit out vocals, drums, bass, guitar. But there's definitely artifacts with it where on the vocals you want to put a little reverb to smooth it out a little bit. But it's still impressive. And what it says to me is, okay, if we're here now, like 3 years from now, it's going to be perfect. And I want to learn how to train these models better to do this. So what I love is with mashups, I mean, Rock Band was such a gift for doing that, just getting all the isolated tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that with DJ, like I can just get on the treadmill. And this is what I do. This is how I've walked now. My streak is like 200 days on the treadmill, because what I'll do is I'll get on there, I'll load up the DJ app, and it's like, okay, I'll pick this song, then this song, and then just try and like key change, mash them up together, align them, and get them going. And I love that I can do that with any song now. It's not just limited to what I have stems for.
Oh, that's great. That's really what how I got into like making music. It was virtual DJ and Acid, right?
Yeah.
So virtual DJ to do like some live mixing and mashups, and then a lot of Acid, Sony Acid back then to not the drug people, not kids.
Yes.
You take the Acid to have the idea for the mashup, and then you sober up to actually sit down.
I was more of a Fruity Loops guy, not the drug.
I started when I stared composing, I went to Fruity Loops actually, because I was like a GameSpot, community. I was part of that community, so I remember I messaged Jeff back then. I was like, "What do you do?" Like I knew he made music with like Midnight Brown, the opening song of the Hotspot was theirs and stuff. I was like, "What do you use?" And he was like, "Oh, there's Fruity Loops," and it was right about when it changed to FL Studio, I think.
Yeah,
and that's great because that if you want to get into music production, people watching this, that is a great value because like to this day I have that because it doesn't matter once you get the license, you get lifetime upgrades. So I still have a producer edition of FL Studio that I can use.
And the great thing about it is it's so easy to take their patterns and then just start modifying them and then learn how to create your own.
Yeah. Just like when you got your first Casio keyboard and you started, just getting those drum loops, and then you stretch them out, and you know, that's the next generation. People don't realize that. But again, like going back to what you said about things that used to feel like garbage now are artifacts. It's the same thing Kanye did with 808s and Heartbreak will be done to shitty Casio keyboards of the 90s. Eventually someone's gonna go like, oh, these are the sounds of my youth, and they're gonna transform them in a way that we're all gonna go like, oh, we all need those keyboards, we all need a speak and spell to make our samples.
Vintage stuff. I mean, it's funny. I think that in the 90s that became a big thing. I mean, there was obviously like the Moog or Moog synthesizer that had a heavy resurgence in the mid 90s, but you started seeing that with bands where it was like, oh, hey, I'm going to take this funky old toy or this thing and I'm going to find a way to use this. Or what was it, like the little practice, like one amp, like cigarette box, like guitar amps.
Yes.
It became, I think, like, Metallica ended up using that on a record. Like it became kind of a cool thing to say like, okay, what's the lowest tech route I can go, or trying to get one up each other with like out of left field like kind of chintzy gear or whatnot.
Yeah. And I remember like back in the early 2000s, the things that were getting big were like circuit bending. So it was like getting those very cheap things and making them make nightmarish sounds that were cool. And it was the start of chiptune, which is still going very much strong, of like, oh, let's get the Game Boy FM synthesizer, or not even FM, I think, but the sound chip on the Game Boy, and let's make music with that. And so it's great. I think it was Brian Eno that said, right, that every medium's limitation will eventually be its charm in the future. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but like, the same way people think like, you want to get that vinyl sound over, like all my professional musician friends put their mixes through like tape simulators, because you want to get the warm tape sound. It's like eventually we're gonna get to a place of like, I want some CD skips on this part of the track. I want it to feel like your Toyota Corolla just hit a bump.
Oh my god! These are the things. Remember, it'd be like, I got a shockproof CD player with like 10 skip protection,
and then all your friends would go like and see how long they had to hit it until it skipped.
What's amazing though is think about pre-Apple Music, like Napster era. Think about the poorly encoded MP3 or the like bad edit MP3 that became like the ubiquitous version of the song everybody knew. And
like, bad edits, they haunt me for life, because like there's a couple songs in my collection to this day that I go like, I know I'm missing a couple seconds right there. It's like you wouldn't notice, but since I know this for a fact, it's going to bother me until I die. But the other thing was, and still a trauma to this day, poorly tagged shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not only just like the stuff that was not Weird Al. I don't mean like
parody.
Like mislabeled things. I'm like, just like, oh, this has the wrong album in it. It's this artist, it's this song, but it's not this album. Or it doesn't have that information at all. And for a long time there was no way, if Windows Media Player did not know what CD that was, then you were shit out of luck. You had to go and do it by yourself.
I told my wife the story because we saw her live. I can't remember her name. Chantel, starts with a K. I've never been able to pronounce it. She's married to the lead singer of Our Lady Peace. Saw them live opening for Bare Naked Ladies. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, this singer, Chantel, should have been famous. She had the cover of Leaving on a Jet Plane that was on the Armageddon soundtrack, shared everywhere, and it was tagged as like Jewel or Natalie Merchant. Like, it was, I mean, everybody had this MP3, beautiful cover of Leaving on a Jet Plane, but nobody tagged it under her name. It was always attributed to some other popular female singer-songwriter.
Yeah, and you can imagine, like, we doing this as kids in Brazil especially, is like, how long do you think it took me to search for Kid Rock's Bow with the Bow? Like, how do you think that I was going to figure out how to spell Bow with the Bow? Of course, famously on the soundtrack of Tokyo Drift, the best Fast and Furious movie.
You know, I didn't see that until recently. I'd seen every other every other Fast and the Furious movie except that one until like
I understand it's kind of a side story. Like it integrates eventually into the main plot line, as of course, but it feels still like a
you know
side.
what happened in anticipation of Fast 9 before it was delayed.
Oh man, man, it was a whole year, man.
I know. Talk about. I mean.
And
I was gonna make the joke like the real tragedies of COVID.
No, but I mean, outside, like, you know, there's like, hey, maybe not in the top 10, but it was pain. The pain was real. Let's not invalidate the pain we felt.
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
There was worse stuff going on.
Worse things happened during the pandemic.
But you know, part of me
personally, that was
you know, Glenn, as a fellow, you know, Renaissance man, someone who's not only a creator, not only an on-screen presence, but someone who deals with the business side of media and entertainment, as do I. Did not part of you get really bothered by the fact that clearly the marketing campaign was not going to show Han? And it only did so because it got delayed and they needed to do a whole other press blitz?
Fast 9 was really tough. I'm still a believer. Still looking forward to, you know,
one of the things that makes me believe is family, is love. You know why? Because my girlfriend really likes that movie more than I do, and like,
wait, Fast 9, really?
Yeah, and when I see it through her eyes, I can love it more than I would by myself. Because she watched all of them with me right before Fast 9 came. Because Fast 9 was coming, and she was like, "Okay, I want to see what this is all about. Let's do it. I'm gonna watch the all of them with you." And she was in from moment one.
Here's the mistake we made. And this isn't to say it's a bad movie, but we thought we were going to be hipsters with this. And we watched Fast and Furious. We watched Too Fast, Too Furious. And then I said, okay, let's now watch Better Luck Tomorrow.
Yes!
See the introduction of Han. And Better Luck Tomorrow is a very good movie. It is not a Fast and Furious.
No, it is. It's decidedly not a Fast and Furious movie. And I have to use this spot to tell everyone that was watching the free version of this that there's a bonus content from last week's episode on the Patreon for the subscribers, because on Dave Lang's episode we spent 10 minutes talking about the Fast and Furious franchise, and he was shitting on Tokyo Drift, and I was telling him to watch Better Luck Tomorrow. So if the people watching this go subscribe to the Patreon, but please, Glenn, let me understand. So you watched 1, 2, then Better Luck Tomorrow, so you could get a feel for Han.
Yeah, and because I was like, we have to watch this now, because we were trying to do it chronologically. We were gonna do Tokyo Drift like before Part 7, like after
right.
Part
Yeah. I think it's valid.
But I was like, well, chronologically, Better Luck Tomorrow's got to kind of take place around this time.
Yeah.
And then we just lost the plot, man. Like it killed our momentum, and then we were like, okay, let's take a break, and then we came back later.
Yeah, like because if you're going to 4, then you would have to go Better Luck Tomorrow 4. Then 5, 6, Tokyo Drift 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, it's sometimes, and Better Luck Tomorrow again is a very good movie. It's just a very different movie, but there are some things that can just like kill your momentum. Like, okay, so the other night we finished the season finale of The Rehearsal. And we're like, okay, this is really good, brilliant show. And we said, you know, everyone, I've been reading a lot, like every third review is mentioning that we should watch Schnackety New York. The Charlie Kaufman film.
Yes, with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes, and so we're like, okay, let's watch that. That seems like a good double feature. We watched that, and it was just like we were breaking our diets. Like, let's order cinnamon rolls. I need to eat my feelings. It's like, you want to watch another movie? Like, not after that. No. Like, no. See where people think it was good. It was well done, but good Lord, I've lost my will to live.
No, yeah, it's a very depressing movie. It's like I watched it years ago, and I really like it. But it's a kind of movie for when you need that of like. I feel like I had that, especially when I was younger, you know, when you haven't gone through enough shit in your life, and you go like, and you go like, I need some Requiem for a Dream in my life right now, you know, I just need one of those movies that scrapes the bottom of human misery and brings it to me, so I feel like I lived through some things, and I think Synecdoche in New York is a much better movie than Requiem for a Dream, of course, but yeah, like I no part of me wants to rewatch that because I watched The Rehearsal, but a lot of me goes like, that is like that movie. That is conceptually like that movie. And both of them made me cry. Like I rewatched the finale yesterday with my girlfriend, and I cried again. It's
yeah, it was very sad. He should have just adopted that kid or co-parented.
should have stole that kid from its mom.
Yeah,
fuck you, Amber.
I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the kid's mom is on, or the kid's grandma is on Twitter and says he's fine now. Like,
yeah,
he took a little adjustment, but it's all good. But no, but it was breaking my heart. Like,
yeah. Like, it's like, and it was breaking my heart how much the mom, like, seemed like she did not want to worry herself nor like try to like be combative with the show when she was like, no, he'll get over. I just hope it doesn't affect him. I was like, lady, it's going to affect him. We can do the best we can, but we're kids. When you're a kid, you're just a trauma manufacturing machine. And
well, it's funny though, and it ties back into what we were talking about earlier. Like even experiencing like public success at an early age. Now, granted, I was older. I was like 14 to 18, but yeah, there is something like in your fully not formed brain where it's like, I kind of just want people to pay attention to me and tell me how brilliant I am. And, it's like, it's weird. I mean, Jeff and I were telling this story on the teaser episode of Game Boys to Men, but it's like Sega sent a limo to my house and it was like, bring your friends, come down to Sega, hang out for an afternoon and play games and talk to like our VP of marketing. And we're going to send you all home with like, oh, you got Genesis? Here's another Genesis. Like, it was very easy to start normalizing that treatment and then want that all the time. And it was tough as an adult when it was like, okay, now I'm working a job and yes, I have good days and I have bad days, but most of the days, like I'm just another dude at this company. And I think I began to find like solace in that in my mid-20s when everything sort of settled. But yeah, it's very tough. Like if I did not have like, some sort of narcissistic personality disorder, like I could see how that could give a child or a teenager that having that much attention and cameras and just being around them.
Yeah. I think I have a similar experience. And I remember, when I started getting into that and doing my own, like, I started actually with podcasts because, I was born in 1990. So my journey happened mostly in the 2000s. Got to keep the cat from falling. So I started doing a podcast with a friend of mine from high school. And then from that, like in a month or two, we met the guys doing like EGM Brazil and all that. And they were like, oh, you should write for us. And then I started doing that. And when I was doing that, most of the people I went to school with were like, yeah, whatever, video games. Who cares? Let's go out and go drinking. And I would go drinking with them. But what I did was nothing special. But then I remember a few years later, it was like a year after I had gotten out of high school, GTA 4 came out. And that was the big thing of like, I have GTA 4 in my house. It's not out. I have to review GTA 4 and it's in my house. And people would want to come over and look at that. And then you feel like, ooh, yeah, like you're special. And then at some point you have to go like, yeah, it's okay. I'll just buy a video game from the store, like Joe Schmo.
That was the weirdest thing the first time that I did that. Like, because I mean, in fact, it might have been one of the GTA games. I'm even trying to remember, but yeah, it was very weird to go like, oh, this stuff used to just be sent to me automatically without even me requesting it, and now I have to go and spend my money buying this.
Yes,
like that was very strange.
I like that I still have a couple things of that. Like, my girlfriend plays my review copy of The Sims 4 till this day.
Oh,
because it's just.
In fact, I will say
on my account, it's just because now that it's all digital, it's just like that serial number was entered and it's there forever.
That's cool. I mean, I think the number one thing game reviewers lose sight of is that you got this for free and you were actually making money playing it and reviewing it, whereas other people are paying money and investing their time with I think almost anyone that reviews games, and I'm sure some journalists do this, but it's like you almost have to like shave 20% off your opinion of something as a professional reviewer and someone who did not buy the game.
Yeah, I till this day when I see people talking about games, and I still have a lot of friends who are in the game, and I was never into like Japanese RPGs and stuff like that, and games that take a long time to beat. Until this day, I have a huge problem with people that go like, well, the first 15 hours, not it's kind of slow, but then it picks up. It's like I have other better things that I can put 15 hours into. Same with TV shows. Like when people go like, yeah, first season, you gotta get through it. It's like I don't have to get through it. I live in the golden age of content. There's so much for me out there. Why would I do that to myself? Like I one of the first times I tried was like, okay, I'll play a JRPG. I played Persona 5 because it looked cool, and it is cool. But then I finished the first mission, which is kind of a tutorial mission, in like 10 hours, Glenn. 10 hours had gone by, distributed in like a week. And then I went, oh, that's the gameplay loop. That's what you do. You start a heist, and then you go, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then boss battle resets. That's how the story goes forward. But now, like, I don't want to do this 6 more times or 7 more times. Like, I'm good. I'm done. Like, this is gonna feel the same. And if only games could be like 2 hours long, Glenn.
No, here's what they should have in games is, and you'd think it would be different. As a kid, you think, oh, what if games had an adult mode and it would be like swearing and nudity and like hardcore sex? No, adult mode is we've got to finish this entire game in 4 hours.
Yeah, give me the abridged. Give me the Reader's Digest version of this game, or at least there was this. I'm not a Call of Duty guy, but there was one of the Call of Duties a few years back that because not a lot of people play the campaign, their whole thing was like, it's all unlocked. Play whatever you want, whatever order you want. If you can play, just can start from mission and go. But if you don't like a mission, skip it. Go to the other one, whatever. And I was like, why can every game be like this? Like I can skim through a book's chapter. I can just go like, this is, whatever. I can fast forward a movie. Why are video games going like, no, no?
I played through the Quarry a couple weeks ago, and I like that there's a director's mode. So I actually played through it, but for a replay, I like there's a director's mode where you could say, this is how smart and good I want each character to be, how agile their decision making, and then you just sit back and it plays out and it skips all the long parts, and you can just like watch the entire thing for like 6 hours.
Yes. I was really into that game, Everything, and I love the fact that if you leave the controller for like 30 seconds, it will just go like, oh, you're gonna do something else. Okay, I'll just keep playing, and it'll play for you. And you can just pick it back up. Yeah, like I love shit like that. That especially because when I like a game's story or I want to see more of its world, I hate being locked out of it because I don't play games well, which is something you mentioned in the Game Boys to Men episode 1, which I totally relate to. It's like, even when I was reviewing games, like I was never good at games, especially because I was reviewing games. I was not playing one game a bunch, and I never wanted to. It was never my style. I'm
okay, but I can't competitively. I think in the Nintendo World Championships, when it came to the Bay Area, I think I ranked in like maybe the top 200. But then I got like smoked out because of rad.
Yeah, I play Virtua Fighter well, and that's my thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, but also psychologically, I am not built like my friends who go like, I sat there the whole night trying to beat that Ninja Gaiden boss. I go like, it doesn't feel good for me. It feels frustrating. I'll play something else. I'll go play Sonic.
Thank God for emulations. I just played through like Super Back to the Future 2, which
save states. Save states.
Yeah, save states. And it's like, because that game is brutal in like just how when you're dead you have to go back to the start of the level. So yeah, using save states, like I was able to finish the game in about an hour and a half, and it was nice. It was like, okay, I could just play through this. It's dumb. It was challenging because some parts of that, like, you really have to maneuver correctly to get through it. But yeah, like that was perfect. That was a perfect experience for the second least bad Back to the Future game.
Nice. So we're going to get into our first game. I'm going to turn on my controller. Do you have a controller?
I do. I have an Xbox controller.
Nice.
Hooked up to my PC.
So the theme I chose was not wrestling, as some people may have thought. I sometimes I zag when people think I'm going to zig. And you mentioned Super Punch-Out on Gamer Boys to
Super
Men.
Punch-Out.
You love Super Punch-Out, and I was like, okay, boxing is a nice theme to go. So I was like, okay, Super Punch-Out, Japanese boxing game. All right, that's the non-American game covered right there. But let me try to find an American-made, Liberty over all boxing game from the land of the free, home of the brave. And I was like, I want this to be retro enough to be kind of around Glenn's time. When did you leave like video game journalism and video game coverage?
2004.
Oh, that's great, because this game's from 1999.
Okay.
And what we're gonna play right now, Glenn, is a little game I like to call HBO Boxing.
I'm watching HBO. Real Sex just ended. Coming up later is America Undercover. But first, we're going to have some HBO boxing.
Exactly. Taxi Cab Confessions is tomorrow night, so you tuned in the wrong night.
Oh, I used to hate that when I was like, oh, is new Larry Sanders? No, there's boxing going on.
Yeah, when you get the wrong day, or there's like something supersedes it.
Yes. Acclaim, makers of fine.
I was never aware there was Acclaim sports label, like Acclaim Sports. Like
Acclaim, we don't need Midway. We don't need Midway in their arcade games. We can do this on our own.
And we built this on Mortal Kombat arcade home ports, and now we're just gonna have. And did you see they have the little feel it? It just everything about it screams EA Sports, but bootleg.
Thanks Sega. Sega started that entire trend.
Yeah, Sega Sports. So when Lucas and I were testing this out and this showed up, this is my sports knowledge. I went, that's the grill man, right? All right. I'm just gonna get the game volume down a little bit. I think it's a bit. Let's get it down to 14 right here. Okay. All right. So this is HBO Sports for the PS1. This is a late release. I did not think this was 99, but yeah, it was 99 in the States, 2000 in the UK, and never in Japan.
Really sharp looking for a PS1 game.
We're doing a lot of 4K upscaling things right here.
Okay, got
it. So it looks better. So let's go first. Single bout here. We can choose our boxers. You're gonna see there's a lot of boxers here, and even I have a very cursory knowledge of boxing, but I know a lot of these names here because they have a lot of very, very famous people here. So, George Foreman. And I like the little aliases, the Marvelous Hagler. But I like that some of them go like, I don't need an alias. Like Michael Grant right here is like, I'm Michael Grant. I'm Michael Grant.
This is like what they used to simulate that fight in Rocky Balboa. Okay, let's see. So
So in 1999, would you say this lineup is good? How much of this is people who were fighting in 1999, and how much is just like the all-star?
Jake LaMotta. If you loved Raging Bull and you want that experience,
they have Jake LaMotta and they have Rocky Marciano.
Yeah.
We can do Rocky Marciano and Jake LaMotta. Okay, let's do that.
There we go.
Rules of the bout. Choose venue.
Yes.
Rules. Let's get the rules. Just the regular rules. But let's choose the venue.
Yes.
So we have Bali's. Wow. Yeah, it's all real stuff, and I don't think there's any Trump hotels, which would make the game a little bit worse. But so that's good. So I played the Las Vegas Hilton earlier. There's Caesar's Palace.
Let's go Caesar's Palace Vegas. Let's go.
All right, let's go. I was trying to see if there was gonna be any like hotels that aren't around anymore, like the Flamingo.
Well, I mean the Flamingo's still standing. Vegas Hilton is now not Southgate. It's I can't remember what it is. Westgate. Yeah. I'll never get over losing Star Trek: The Experience.
Yeah, and I went there right before it closed. I went there in 2008. No, 2007. I had dinner at the Star Trek: The Experience thing. So you see, if you get past a bunch of the PS1's limitations, people did good work here. You know, these are some good textures. The models were as good as they could be. So right now, what I can tell you about these is that I am not playing, I think. Oh, I am. Wait. Yes. Okay, so the face buttons are your punches, and then you can use like the right trigger to block like lower, and then up with the left left trigger, and then R1, which you'd be your right bumper, makes you punch, you know, in the stomach instead of the face.
A beauty of a cross.
And I know nothing about boxing and how I should punch or defend.
For 99, now granted, I know you've got some like pixel upscaling and smoothing going on. This is actually like pretty good for a 99 game.
It is, and even like it might look jarring for some of our younger audience to see the 2D cutout audience, but like if you think about games that were coming out back then, like Cruising USA, things like that, that's really how you did it, and that's, you know, the front row right there. And imagine this is a 240p game, you know. 240 lines on your TV. That's as much detail you're going to need, really, for an audience back there, which was going to be fuzzy anyway. Unless you're like, oh, I lived in Europe and I had a SCAR cable. Well.
Yeah, it's really more the gameplay. And I know it's not the lag of playing online. It's just like the gameplay of this.
It is. There is, like, it's kind of why I don't play those Dark Souls games. Is like, there's this animation priority of once you press a button, he's going to go through all that punch animation. You're not going to be able to cancel out of it. And it's going to take a while until it like kind of connects. That if you're used
this is meant for 12 rounds. This is meant for 12 rounds of boxing, too.
Yes. You can get a KO or like, and when we played earlier today to test it out, for some reason, some boxing reason that I do not know, it ended at like around 8 or something.
Okay.
So I thought this was pretty cool that it has, like, you can get, you know, different parts of your face bruised, and it will, like, some will heal, some won't. It reminded me of stuff like Fight Night 3 for the 360. You know, some, you know, stuff like almost 10 years later. So this game was, when I found out about HBO boxing, I was like, this is probably going to be like one of those licensed tie-in games, you know. This is not going to be that good, but there seems like a lot of effort was put into making a decent boxing game, even though, you know, whatever that Dreamcast boxing game was going to come out the same year, and that was better because it was fun.
Now, how much of a discussion was there with Jake LaMotta? Like, we can't make him look like De Niro. Like, I know it's what people are expecting, but we just can't. We don't have the license, you know.
And hard, you know, because in 1999, you'd think that HBO would have the cachet, maybe, to get De Niro to, like, hey, De Niro, when I played Jake LaMotta in a video game again.
Before the Godfather game, but this was after Bruce Willis got all that Activision stock or whatever doing Armageddon. You know.
Yes, Apocalypse.
Apocalypse, that's right.
Apocalypse is the Bruce Willis video game, not the Bruce Willis movie Armageddon.
Apocalypse was so terrible.
It was. And after, Bruce Willis did not get his likeness in any of the Die Hard games of that era. Because there was Die Hard Arcade, that was Die Hard Trilogy 1 and 2 on the PS1 and Saturn. And if you look at the art of Dynamite Deca, which is the Japanese version of Die Hard Arcade, that character does look like Bruce Willis, because I think they don't care about Western likeness rights in Japan. Because there was a character that looked like Tom Cruise in like Resident Evil Outbreak 2.
That's right. But yeah, I think Apocalypse, like, that was huge at the time. I remember speculation that they gave him stock or like equity in the company in addition to like $1 million. And that game was completely retooled because originally like Bruce was the sidekick and then he became the protagonist.
Yeah, he was not the playable character, right? Yeah,
correct.
And then became the playable character. Yeah, I remember that game was so bad back then. Like, imagine this as a kid in Brazil, where every game was pirated and was super cheap. Every kid I knew would get maybe a game a week. We did not care. Still, I don't know anyone that had Apocalypse back then. I'm like, no, this looks like crap. No. I'll take the reboot game, sir, please.
We had a videotape of that at GameSpot. Their press video for that was like Bruce going through the mocap process and talking about how great the game was going to be. And the end of the video is just Bruce looking at the camera in his mocap dot saying Apocalypse, fucking buy it.
Man, if they got him with John Romero back then, one of them would make you his bitch. The other would tell you to fucking buy it. It would be the most 1999 thing. Attitude Era of video games. Possible.
We'll have to talk about this in Game Boys to Men, but when I worked at CNET Game Center, which was one of the last gigs I had in the business, they were going to do like a Games Con in San Francisco, and I remember that we were going to have a Daikatana endurance run competition.
Is the endurance run to just be able to play Daikatana?
Yes, it was because we hated it so much.
It's I'll endure Daikatana.
Canceled. Yeah.
The other day I was talking about Daikatana, and someone younger went, "Oh, that game actually came out." They only knew it from the ad. That's how the legacy of that game is. You can still get up with 0. Oh, okay, you can get some life back. I like the shorts on my guy. He's really Rocky. Is Rocky Balboa just based on?
Rocky Marciano? Yeah.
I did not know there was a real Rocky. I knew there was I knew of Jake LaMotta and The Contender. He could have been a contender. That's
Rocky Stallone got sued by a boxer that had so Rocky Marciano, they took the name and some of the ideas, but he got sued by another boxer that had a very similar story.
Oh, okay.
He was kind of a ringer, and then got a big opportunity.
Right. So it's kind of like a mashup, like we talked about.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So my right eye healed just during the fight. That's how much. And your guy, and really, the models and textures do not look that bad. Especially, if you think about this is for PS1. Some of these characters could be just pedestrians in GTA 3, which would come out a couple years later on the PS2.
Yeah, it's interesting. Although you look at the crowds now, look at the WWE games, and yes, they're rendered as opposed to cutouts, but crowds still haven't really evolved that much.
I think that there's also a psychological effect about it of yeah, sure, the resolution's there, you can render it out, but are players really looking at that when they're really playing? I think a lot of this is stuff that we notice because we might have been watching gameplay videos or trailers and stuff. When you're actually playing, you don't pay that much attention. I don't know. I think about that a lot for racing games.
Yeah.
Of how much of this when you're working you have to make decisions of it's okay, man, just leave that be. Let's focus on things that are more important to the actual 99% of gameplay you're going to be doing. But then every racing game became an open world game where you can drive through at 5 miles an hour and look at everything and go, this looks like garbage.
That was the problem with LA Noire compared to the other Rockstar games, was that to have it be you get out and you're just looking at a facade.
Yeah.
As opposed to a fully functioning building, it just became super disappointing.
Especially because that game, and I remember the first Mafia, it was so jarring that your cars are so slow because that's, you're in the 1920s and 30s. Mm-hmm. So that's what cars were like, I guess. So the other thing this game has that I thought could be interesting here before we move on to the less janky part of our episode, but it's still gonna have something very cool. I don't know if you know about this, but recently, last week actually, it was found that there was a hidden multiplayer mode in Super PunchOut. So we're gonna play that.
Really?
You're gonna get
Oh, wow.
to play as one of the boss characters and beat me up.
That is huge that was found.
It is, and that it was so late. But so before we go to that, there's a career mode where you can create your boxer, and I think it looks pretty cool. I took a very cursory look at it, and I was like, oh, let's save this for the show. So first of all, this is something that I had not seen in any game of the era, and nowadays I think like GTA Online does it and stuff. That to create your base like skin tone and features, it actually has you pick your like the heritage, like two people of different ethnic backgrounds and actually combine them. And I was like, wow, for a 1999 game,
That's very advanced.
That's very advanced. Like to have that idea and to actually implement it with the technology of the era, that was pretty cool. I do not know. That's the limitation of the PS1. I do not know what those ethnic groups are supposed to be. Like I could not tell you what my parents are supposed to be. Like, oh, if this guy is Latino, if that guy is Asian.
Yeah.
But whatever, man. My two dads were this, and now I'm that. That's how boxing works. But I get it. You didn't want, which is, you know what? I don't get it, because I'm gonna tell you one thing. This game has female boxers in it. They could have just had. Well, anyways, it makes it even more progressive, I think. Even though there's some genetic implications about how it's
like the movie Twins situation. They just sort of mix it all up.
It's like the movie Twins and the movie Junior, the two movies with Danny DeVito and Schwarzenegger combined. It's like Schwarzenegger is pregnant from Danny DeVito. It's how that would go.
Okay, I think I'm controlling this.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. And it's crazy. So since these were never supposed to be used by humans, they're super overpowered. You'll see. It's gonna be really easy to beat me. But it's a much faster game than HBO Boxing, and it came out almost 10 years earlier. Ooh, I didn't think it was gonna be that easy.
1, 2,
all right.
fight!
Ooh!
1, 2,
it's okay.
3, 4.
I'll do a Rocky. I'll tire you out. Yeah, just dodge. Just dodge. You dodge my dodge, I'll dodge your dodge. Ooh!
Knockout.
I mean, I could see why they dropped this feature because, I mean, this isn't Street Fighter. This is not a balanced game at all.
Yeah, I saw some people going, proposing that maybe this was just for debug purposes. That was never intended to be played. Let's see where it jumps us back to. Oh, it jumps us back to the menu. So let's try again with a new character. Now that we know that it works, let's do the Bruce Lee guy again. So yeah, you hold down A and X.
A and X. Okay, holding him.
Keep holding. Keep holding. Don't let go. Don't let go. Keep holding like you're holding monkey NFTs. Hold on for dear life, as they say in the crypto space, in the blogosphere. All right. Is this working?
It might be. Yeah, I think so, because I'm doing the dodge.
All right. I don't think you can kick people in boxing.
So the button matches with it. The button mapping in this is basically to specials. So like the stuff that I'm hitting
does specials.
Like the guy's special move. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because they have way more moves than I do.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And there's like no special meter.
No, yeah, you can just keep doing, because you're basically, this is basically like picking Shao Kahn when you're playing Mortal Kombat Trilogy. This is what it is.
Still this series.
Yeah, you said you never played the Wii one, right? Yeah, the Wii one was fun. I remember that. It was a nice. It was very much like Super PunchOut, so but in 3D, but it had the charisma, the charm of the series.
one.
All right. I think we got enough of those games for us to go to the final segment here, where you're gonna give us a little. You're gonna give us your thoughts. So we played HBO, baseball, boxing, HBO boxing. That's what we played for the PS1, 1999 released, made by Osiris Games in Texas. And now we played some Hidden Mode and Super Punch-Out, a game we both played a lot of before today, on the SNES, released in 90, let's say 94. How do you feel, Glenn? Which do you think is more janky? Do the Americans have the Americans surpassed the Japanese in 1999? Are they better making games, or they're still making jankier games and learning?
So I believe this about both boxing games and wrestling games. I do not believe they should be a simulation. I think there's a place for that. Some people like that. You must be a very interesting person. You're very detail-oriented. You're very technical.
Yes.
You probably like a lot of different things in wrestling than I do. You watch
wrestling
is match with a lot of rest holds and be like, oh, what technical wizardry we're watching here.
I don't get people that want sports entertainment to be simulations, because what are you like? The good way to simulate it is when you have those games of like, you have to lose this fight and this guy has to do this, and you gotta kind of like almost a theater game.
Big character and story guy when it comes to wrestling, and so it should probably surprise no one that I think boxing and wrestling work better in an arcade. I mean, look at underrated wrestling game. The WWE one, was it Slam Masters, the one where they just used basically the Mortal Kombat approach and did the wrestling game where it's got like 8 fighters like Undertaker, Doink, and Doink is like super overpowered.
Doink is a great name. Is that a real fighter?
Doink the Clown. Doink the Clown is 100%.
Doink the Clown. Okay, Doink is a good name for a clown.
WWF character.
That's the one. Yeah, I remember I played that when I was a kid. Yeah, that one was good.
Yeah, because I think it should be more arcade-like, and I think that Punch-Out, the reason why Punch-Out is great is because you have these larger-than-life characters. Now, looking through a 2022 lens, you could say, are they being super inclusive, or are they bordering perhaps on caricature with
and again
much of this?
I would not look to the Japanese people in general to be super culturally sensitive to people outside of Japan.
I played B-Rap Boys for the first time yesterday, and yes, I understand what you're saying. But no, look, I think that it works better. And in fact, one thing I thought you were going to pick today was Rocky for the Sega Master System, which is an interesting mix because it's characters that we're very familiar with, but it's still a little kind of probably straddles more than most that fine line between arcade, but not quite sim, but it's a deeper boxing game in some ways.
Right. Maybe we can have you back in the future and we can play that, because really outside of Punch-Out and Super Punch-Out, I don't think I've played any other 2D boxing games. And
there's quite a few.
And I think that helps because you can't do as much simulation, and you kind of need to pare it down and simplify it a little bit when you're doing 2D, and maybe that helps. Because when we see like early 3D there with HBO boxing, they start to go, oh, we can now have all these kinds of punches and ways to defend yourself, and it becomes really technical.
I mean, and then on the opposite spectrum, think about like Prize Fighter for the Sega CD, which is like too simple. But at the time, like I remember me and a lot of other people raved about. We all got hoodwinked about multimedia and the full motion video games.
Did we? Oh man!
Yeah.
I still think that people that like Myst are part of the ones that were hoodwinked. Is like people like you and me, Glenn. We know Sewer Shark was not that great, but some people are still out there banging that Myst drum.
Myst at the time, I remember getting like a lot of crap because I was someone who was like, it's not a game. Like Myst, and I hated the cult of Myst. In fact, when I was an angry young man, I think Myst represented everything that I thought was wrong with video and computer game fandom.
Yes, because first of all, it was calm. It was a calm, chill ass game with no combat as far as I know. I wanted no part of that. But little FMVs of those
with Myst. where it was like in the instruction book, it's blank because you read it yourself.
Yeah, no, yes. I think that even nowadays I laugh at it, but back then when I was getting into like, when I was the person that was going to in the next few years get really into new metal and wearing very long shorts, I was not I was not ready to accept that, oh man, and you're going to explore this space which is between fantasy and reality, and there's some steampunk things and some rocks that are magic. It's like, no.
Everybody who I didn't take seriously and that talked about video games loved that game.
I think liking Myst back then was the closest you could have to being the person that asks, what's your sign in a video game conversation. You started talking about Myst and I go, oh shit. It's like, are you going to try to sell me some incense and tell me about some I don't know, like,
what's the equivalent
gnomes
of
are
that
real.
Today? Is there an equivalent of that today? Because I mean, now it's like, if you are somebody that, if you like, I almost don't want to be pejorative by naming a current game, but I see fandoms around different subsets of gaming, but I don't think I've seen anything like Myst.
I think
since Myst, honestly,
and this is I think points to a larger problem in our current culture, in all of entertainment, is that the Myst people today are the people that crowdfunded the Myst remake.
Because I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about every other game that's got a huge cult following that's maybe not on the bleeding edge of things, and it's like, no, it's still a game though. Like, if you really like The Sims, like The Sims is still a game.
I think maybe, remember a few years back when we had that conversation that our walking simulators games, like I fell into it. Yeah. Like it was I fell into it back then. I was still writing about games, and I remember when Dear Esther came out, I was like, this is not a game, and then I was like, maybe it's a game. I don't care.
But yeah, it's weird because now, like, I loved and like just had like some ugly cry sessions over like the Life is Strange games.
Yes.
So
but those are still more like adventure games, I think. But I like Dear Esther. I don't like, what is the one where you come back home and your family is not there and you're just going.
Oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
So that one's
is that Dear Esther?
No, Dear Esther is the one you're alone in like this very British island, and I say very British island because it's always raining. But it's good, and it's short, and it's a good story. And then there was like the Stanley Parable and a lot of stuff like that was really good. But it was very much walk around and get and find out about this story, kind of like Myst was. But I don't think any one of those titles like got the attention that Myst had, because now we have so much, such a much bigger gaming spectrum and a lot more indie titles. So kind of like just like music and movies do not have that super strong mainstream like they used to. Like games also, like instead of being Myst, it's kind of like, well, for a couple of years there on Steam, a lot of these games were hitting. And I liked a lot of them. Like I like Her Story, also, which is not a walking simulator, but it's kind of like Myst. It's like you want to watch a bunch of video and maybe write a story yourself. There's this great, I don't know if you remember this. There's a screenshot of a Steam review of Her Story that circulated back when the game came out, which is perfect, I think, to explain the gamer mindset, Glenn, was something I think that hasn't changed since you were applying it to beat Nintendo in court in 1991. The gamer mindset is really simple. Her Story is a video game where you're looking at the multiple interrogations of this one woman about a crime that was committed, trying to figure out what happened, right? Okay. And there's no proper end game. There is no way to just like check all the boxes. You just at some point you tell the game, okay, I'm satisfied, right? And someone is asking about that. It's like, how do I finish the game? And then, you just tell the game that you're satisfied. And the answer from the original poster was, but how do I know when I'm satisfied? It's like the game will not tell you, my friend. The life is that. Is like, how do I know if I'm satisfied? You don't. Well, you have to figure that out for yourself. Like nothing is gonna tell you.
It's interesting. And I think part of it is perspective, and I think just maturity and how much else you have going on. Because I think that like when you're young and your life is all video games, it's very easy to be cynical and like my opinion is the right opinion. And then you get older and you appreciate things in different ways. And, I explain it when Jeff Gerstmann and I were talking about, I mean, the entire reason for our friendship is that, he wanted to talk to me about what I wrote about Bill Laimbeer's Combat Basketball and like how I was enamored with all these novel features. And I think someone in his Discord was like, yeah, you said like Gex was like the funniest game ever made. And I think that you have to remember that when you do this professionally, it's like, imagine there's a professional ice cream taster and that's your job. You go to work every day and you eat ice cream. So you could be like, chocolate. No, but it's really good chocolate. Dude. It's like, yeah, but I've had so much chocolate. Like, I don't appreciate this. And then someone's like, here's a weird flavor where it's like sriracha and cranberry. And you're eating that for the first time. And you're like, is this good? Well, it's certainly new to me. And as someone who tastes the same thing again and again, something that's new and novel is going to get my attention. I'm going to find a way to appreciate that and be more predisposed for that to have my attention and recommendation rather than yet another chocolate pairing.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that thing you said about like how we not enough writers are, especially about games, because now when you write about movies and TV, you're just talking about the streaming services you already have, but that we have to be a little conscious about how people are engaging with this with their valued free time and their valued money that they need to think about where to invest. And so even if the sriracha cranberry ice cream is very good and you go like, oh, I got where they were going and they got it, they did it, man, they made it work. Maybe this person, when they have time for some ice cream and some money for some ice cream, they want some goddamn chocolate ice cream.
Absolutely. And I think that I didn't have that perspective. I probably lost that perspective like 2 years into doing it, maybe even sooner.
Yeah.
Just because, and think about like the sameness of video games. It's so easy to get jaded when you have to play all of them. Whereas someone that's buying them, it's your satisfaction is going to be different. And it's interesting. So now I look at it much, much differently.
And also, like you lose sight of the fact that not everyone is on top of everything that was made and released. Yes. So you go like, someone goes like, "Oh, I'm playing such and such in school." It's like, well, I think this other game that came out 6 months before it did it way better. It's like, oh, but I didn't even know that game existed, so I'm fine with this.
I mean, it's very similar with movies and TV. You look at a lot of things, and we live in a very mashup era where a lot of movies and TV, I mean, Stranger Things is a great example, because Stranger Things, you could be like, well, Goonies did this, and Explorers did this, and Last Starfighter, and there were all these elements that came together, and it's like, yeah, but maybe I just want to watch the new remixed version of that takes all those elements and puts it into one thing, as opposed to going back and dissecting the originals.
The same way that actually a bunch of those 80s things were doing it back then with things from the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
But also on the other hand, Glenn, I want to be that guy that every time someone mentions Stranger Things, I go, actually, have you watched Erie, Indiana? And Erie, Indiana, The Other Dimension.
And it's become such a shorthand. So, I do a seasonal, we did it for the first season of Yellow Jackets, like a watch of that. I think that show, is fairly unique, but even there I was like, well, it's got a little bit of like Now and Then and a little bit of these other movies. But, I was talking about the other day, I was like Paper Girls on Amazon. I'm like, this is like Yellow Jackets meets Stranger Things. Like, It's very...
And you can... And you can say that in a way that is pejorative, or you can say that in a way of like, I really enjoy this, and I think this communicates well what I enjoy about it.
Yeah, and I think that with streaming, it's easier. I mean, with games too. Think about this, man. Think about if we've been living in an era back then where you just paid $10 or $20 a month and you got access to every Sega or Nintendo game.
Yeah,
you could just stream them.
Like Japanese
your
people
system.
could with like the Satellaview and shit. But yeah.
So it would be a different experience then, because then like I wonder if Nintendo and Sega, I wonder if that business model would have worked better for them then, and because people would have played more games if they weren't having to financially invest. Even with renting became the thing where like all the hot games were gone, and then you would rent something, you know, like a C title, and you'd be like, oh, this is bad, and then you would like, I don't know. There's just something about beaming directly to your system that's makes you much more open to it.
Yeah, and that's why I think Brazilian gaming culture is so fascinating. To even, you know, for people that grew up in it like me, like looking back at it through the realization we have now of like, oh, we had a completely different experiences with these games than like Europeans and Japanese players and and American gamers, because for us it was, you know, not only did we have rental shops and stuff like that, but getting a new game was Polenta. She's fine. Polenta. Yeah, she's fine. She's always been that way. She doesn't have a lot of balance, so she falls a bit, but she's fine. But well, the thing is, like, games were really cheap because we bought Pirate Head cartridges. So, you know, every day, like if I went to went out with my grandma or my mom and we went by like some dude on the street selling some games, you know, it was the same price of like maybe like, hey mom, can I get this chocolate? It's like, hey mom,
really?
Yeah, it was like R$5. It was like dirt cheap. Dirt
How
cheap.
are they getting the ROMs and chips so cheap?
It was all Chinese manufactured. So Chinese manufactured, then imported on the down low to like South America and other places like here. So I think it was China and Taiwan were the main places really manufacturing cartridges back then, and then they would just ship it to the rest of the world. And it was just like cheap cartridges with shitty labels, and sometimes very creative ones. So like when GoldenEye came out for the 64, all the old Genesis cards of James Bond Jr. got the GoldenEye label and like James Bond Jr. written really, really small and stuff like that. But yeah, and since like these guys dealt with like volume and cheap, they would also be like it would be like they wouldn't ask too many questions if you came back next week and they're like, can I get another one? Like, I don't know, this is not, this is not good, this is not working. And it's like, yeah, sure, whatever, and then eventually it got even cheaper when it came to discs. So, the PlayStation 7 came out. It was like, man, CDs, whatever, man. Just get whatever you want. And that went into like all the way to the 360 era, right? Because piracy took a while to get going there. So like I remember like when I got my PlayStation 2 and I got it modded, I remember going to the guy on the street and going like, I want a racing game where the cars smash. I don't want that Gran Turismo bullshit. I want to see like crash. Nice. And then he was like, there's this Burnout thing and that's how I found out about Burnout, and I played the first Burnout and I was hooked forever. But yeah, so we got to try a bunch of games and not delve into it. So what I'm saying is I started having the life of a video game reviewer really, really early on, because the rooms, like the room of any child my age in like 98 in Brazil was like just a bunch of CDRs all around, and we did not treat them correctly because it was like, that's so cheap.
No, of course not. When I moved, we moved to Vegas last fall, and I've been in the same house for the better part of 20 some odd years, and I just was finding loose CDs that I just ended up tossing out. And there were so many unlabeled ones. First, I was like, should I keep these? Because maybe I've got like a data backup. And then at a certain point, it was just like, all this must go.
Yes.
And there were like pirated games. I mean, there was probably some purchase stuff. It was really like, and then I think about pre-streaming everything that I used to download and then burn to like my Philips player that could play Xvid AVIs.
Yeah, and none of that matters now because it's like, oh, this is the worst possible encoding of this, and it's like, it's stuff that I can just like torrent in a good format.
You know what's missing a lot of though. I've gone down this rabbit hole trying to find it. Is remember 99 to 2003, there were the scene release groups that were doing SVCD videos of TV shows.
Back then, I used to work at a little one of those little like those Chinese galleries, like with a bunch of like that sell a bunch of like pirated stuff here, and we sold like all kinds of CDs, and so we had the DivX CDs and the VCD and SVCD CDs, and like I would hate it when a movie came in VCD and not DivX.
I know.
It was so bad.
But there's a lot of TV shows that have been lost to time. A lot of like late 90s, early 2000s TV shows like WB, Paramount, that stuff that like had SVCD releases that were really good quality, never been released on DVD.
Right.
Like, and you can't find those scene releases anywhere. Like, there's a lot of stuff I've been looking for. Trying to find.
And still, even today with the streaming and on-demand services that are supposed to save us all, like there's this documentary I was looking for that is on Amazon on demand in the US, but I can't rent it or buy it from here, and it's DRM'd, right? And I have like this 240p copy of it, and eventually I got into this movie private tracker that has everything, and then even they don't have it, and now I have to pay a bounty for someone to pirate it and stuff like that.
Do it
and part of me goes like, how long do I have to do it? Because like maybe those rights expire at some point and it's not on Amazon anymore, and stuff like that. Like yesterday, my girlfriend was watching a movie from a friend of ours here in Brazil that is on Netflix, and she was watching it on TV. I was like, this looks bad. This doesn't look right. And so I clicked like the information button on the remote, and it was like Netflix's copy is like a 2.5 megabit encode of the 1080p, and I immediately went to like a tracker, and it was like, oh, this one's 8 megabits per second. It's like, why is the pirate version way better than what Netflix puts out?
I can't figure out. I was trying to watch this Vincent D'Onofrio, Marissa Tomei movie from the late 90s. And like,
I'm already in. You just said those two names.
I think it's called Happy Endings or something. It's supposedly very good. I haven't watched it yet. But it's Sling TV, which is like an also ran streaming TV service.
Yes.
They have a copy that's like credible. Like it might even be HD, but for some reason on Prime Video and everything else, like it looks like a DivX copy.
I recently got into a similar situation with the movie Happiness. You know that movie with yeah, that movie's never getting re-released. Unfortunately, I think.
What was it called? Vincent D'Onofrio. I gotta look this up now. The name of the movie wasn't Happy. No, I think it was something else. I still haven't watched it yet. I need to check this out.
But yeah, like the
Happy Accidents.
Happy Accidents. Let me see if I can find that for you. But that movie Happiness, like the best version that is around is like the PAL DVD version. And it's not good. It's not a good encode. But yeah. Well, yeah, apparently the best versions I can find here of that movie Happy Accidents are like XVID, some like 400p XVID, then
I'm telling you, dude, like
a 480p X264 made from the DVD, and you can get the best you can get is the actual DVD 5 ISO, which is NTSC format. So it's like
Sling TV is streaming it from the IFC on demand channel, and I think they have an HD upscale. Like it's crazy though. It's like it's weird the stuff that. Like somebody has a copy of this somewhere, but if you don't know how to navigate the maze, you're never going to get to it.
Well, yeah, for a long, long time, the most popular television show in history, Seinfeld, was only available in HD on reruns.
Which is crazy because 16:9 does not work. Same with Cheers. Like it just looks very weird as 16:9.
I have not seen. There's a 16:9 version of Cheers.
Oh yes. Yeah, it's very odd. And it's scanned from the original film, so it looks beautiful.
Oh, just like Seinfeld, yeah. Seinfeld doesn't look bad in HD.
No, but it's just not how it was meant to be framed. It's supposed to be a 4:3.
They got some extra on the sides there and stuff, but that's the thing. They scanned the film and never released like a 4:3 scan in HD.
I know.
Because they think no one wants
The Wire. Like the HD version of The Wire, they had to recompose all those shots because the crew was in a bunch of them.
But
Like,
what are they showing in Cheers? Like that set is pretty much the.
I know.
Like most of the time, you're watching the whole set in Cheers. If you go a little bit further, you're just gonna see the crew.
I think they did it from the film and they cropped the 4:3 to 16:9. But you look at that though, and look at a show like the shot on video, like Family Ties, and it's like, yep, this is as good as it's ever gonna look. Like this was shot on 3/4-inch videotape. Like
I'm a Philistine. I'll admit, I have the Seinfeld DVDs, but the one on my Plex is the HD 16:9 one, and but I have Taxi. That looks fine. That it's good. It's a good 4:3 version that is out there. It's Taxi, Cheers. There's an amazing 4:3 HD release of Police Squad, which came out on Blu-ray.
Since because that was all filmed, so that should be
but they kept it 4:3. That's the good stuff. You know,
I'm curious about more of these game remasters. I've got a strong urge to go back and replay Phantasy Star 1 and 2, and I was looking at the remasters Sega did of those. I'm surprised we haven't seen more in the remaster. Because I think there's so much potential still to update graphics on some of these games.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of companies started figuring out what to do around the 360 era there. And there was some backlash with some stuff. Like, remember when Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD came out and they did all the new graphics and stuff? And I like those new graphics, whatever. And you could toggle them on or off easily. But then people were like, "Oh, this looks like garbage." And then everyone's like, "Oh, you can't never do new graphics for anything." And then now people don't know what to do. And then people were like, even in the homebrew and piracy scene, you know, like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I want crisp pixels." Other people are like, "No, I want the enhancements." Like, because like today on this show we did both, right? We did the very crisp Super Nintendo stuff, but we also did like up-res PlayStation stuff in widescreen. And I think there's not one size fits all answer for
give people the option. That's the key, is just give people the option.
But I think a lot of companies don't give people the option because they go like, well, giving people the option costs money. I could just re-release a ROM on the Switch and just let the money pour in.
Yeah, I think it's just on a TV though. You know what I mean? Like I tried to load up Phantasy Star and on a 4K TV, it was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna play this, but my wife isn't gonna sit and watch me play this.
Yeah,
looking like this. You know, but if it was cleaner, like then you could experience the story and I think have a better
and then you think about how like younger players that have no attachment to that aesthetic actually go like, well, some would go because they're super nerdy idiots like us and go like, well, this is actually how it was back then and I want to experience it like that, just like us going like, I want it 4:3, damn it. But at the end of the day, you need the pirates out there, or else, you know, we wouldn't have Nosferatu if a dude hadn't pirated a copy of Nosferatu way back then. So I think that's it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's the point is of all the things we talked about, but maybe that there isn't an answer of how to preserve our past as people and as a human race making entertainment and art. I didn't think an episode about boxing games was going to go so deep, but thank you, Glenn. You brought the deepness. You brought the substance to this episode. And I'm very glad, and I hope everyone listens to your podcast. It's Game Boy. Is it Games Boy? Oh, Game Boys.
No, Game Boys to Men, and it's on Jeff Gerstmann's Patreon at the co-conspirator level or above. I also host the Wrestling Inc. podcast every Tuesday and Friday, covering NXT and SmackDown with a little AEW Rampage mixed in there. And you can find me on Twitter at Glenn Rubenstein.
Great, Glenn. I'm going to listen to that wrestling podcast because I need to get back in. I never got, a real sense of when it was good to get back with following wrestling, but I've always been on the sidelines. When I went to Japan, I went to watch New Japan. and I actually trained. You know, if you ever come down to Brazil, I'll take you to a Brazilian Wrestling Federation show because I trained with them for a while. It was quite intense. I have never been so physically fit in my life, Glenn, than for those 3 months. It's quite a cool indie thing right here. Thank you so much for doing this, Glenn. And I hope we play Master System Rocky in a
next
future
time.
episode. Thank you so much.
Sounds good, dude. Thank you.